I always need a little in the front for the, like transition into the title card.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, this will provide you with some white noise. All right, go ahead.
Welcome to in the shoot.
Cut it
Welcome,
out. Restart. Take two.
welcome to the Inpending podcast. I'm Caleb,
Is David here?
and with us we also have special guest.
I'm Lydia, the guest.
Yeah. So with us is Lydia. She loves to travel. She loves to go out and have unique experiences. And right now she is currently residing in Ismaning in Germany. Yeah. How are you doing, Lydia?
I'm doing really, really good. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Okay.
Just okay.
Yeah, I mean, U.S. I've lived here my whole life. It's probably not as, to me at least, it's not as exciting as maybe living in Germany.
Well, if you look at it from like someone who's visiting's perspective, then I think you'll appreciate it a lot more because there's actually so much to do, so many different landscapes, and yeah, just a lot to explore and see and experience, even though it's the same country. But even just going to another state might feel really, really different. So
Oh,
yeah, just putting that out there.
That is true. Yeah. Uh, it's like there's a total different mentality between living out a country and visiting another country, right?
Yeah.
And I want to say that, especially in my case, is Japan. Living in Japan, it's kind of bad. I want to say, like they have a very strict working culture where you would work 8 hours a day.
probably more.
Yeah.
It's I always described Japan as like the death march, where it's like every day of your life it's like wake up, go to work, go to like after work drinking, go to sleep, wake up, go to work, and it's like it's very routine. Everyone's really set in their ways and they kind of do that until they die.
Yeah, that's true. It's like right out of high school,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
you either go to college or you go into the workforce. And from there, you're probably working for like the next 50 years without any breaks or any. I mean, they have breaks, right? But it's also a lot of Asian culture where you don't take those breaks. Actually, some companies, they would tell you that you are required to go and use your breaks. Because
Mhm.
everyone's just like, oh, if I go on a vacation, someone else is going to come in and take my job, right? And so they just keep working very hard. But going and visiting Japan as a tourist is wonderful.
I love Japan. I want to go back again. Like the first time I went, wasn't wasn't long enough. I didn't feel like I got the full experience. I love Japan. I wish I could go back. It's too expensive to always travel though.
Yeah, it's true.
How long were you in Japan and when did you go?
I actually went with David over spring break, so it was just a week, and it was like this last spring break. So yeah,
Yeah.
Recent.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was recent.
So cool. Where did you guys stay in?
Dude, we actually like we went and visited every major city we could. Went and stayed in Tokyo for 3 days, I want to say, and then we went over to Hakone, where it's famous for their hot springs, and we stayed in a hot spring hotel for one night. That
Oh,
was
that sounds really nice.
Yeah, that was really nice. We wish we could spend more time there. And then we went over to Osaka, went up for a day trip to Kyoto, and came back and pretty much had to book it back to Tokyo to catch our flight.
Mhm.
Yeah, a week is definitely not enough time to visit an entire country.
I mean, we kind
Yeah.
of like rushed, and we did get to go to a lot of different places, but because it was such a short time, we didn't really get to like fully enjoy each place we stayed at. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely would love to go back.
Yeah.
You can. I'm sure you have the opportunity in the future.
I'm sure I do. I'm still young, I guess. Not even working yet. Once I get an income, maybe.
Okay.
Well, how long have you been in Ismaning now?
I've been here for almost 3 full weeks. Like tomorrow would be the exact mark for 3 weeks. it's actually my first time in Europe, which is kind of a big deal because it was kind of out of the blue for me to move here, and almost I would perhaps say it was quote unquote on a whim or so.
Mm-hmm.
I only really decided for sure that I would be moving to Germany for almost an entire year, about a month before my flight. So
Oh
I
wow.
think for a lot of people, that's really, really last minute and something that they would never do.
Yeah.
Spontaneous, and a really, really big step and a big commitment. I mean, if this was just like a week or 2 week or 3 week trip or something, that makes a lot more sense. But to move to a country that you've never been to a continent that you've never even visited, and language that you haven't even heard people speak in person is kind of a big deal, I guess.
So are you right now, do you feel like a tourist still, or do you feel like a resident already?
Feel like a resident, um, mainly because I think I'm just living with a German family actually right now. So what I'm doing is an au pair program, AUPAIR, which is French for essentially like a live-in nanny. And what this program is in exchange for taking care of a family's child or their children, they give you room and board.
Mm-hmm.
Specific au pair program is actually specifically geared towards a cultural exchange program, actually. So, regular au pair program, you cannot be an au pair in the country that you come from. From America, and I'm not allowed to be an au pair in America because the point is for a cultural exchange, as I
I
mentioned.
see.
So the reason why the family would want an au pair is usually because they want their child to learn whatever native language that you speak. So in my case, the host family wanted me to speak English to their youngest child,
Mm-hmm.
who's a 7-year-old girl. And this family actually used to live in America, and they
Oh.
lived there for 7 years, and they moved back to Germany just 3 years ago. But since little girl was born in the States actually, but because she didn't really have much schooling yet on, then she came to Germany for the later years in her life. Her English is kind of broken in a way. She
Uh,
uses German grammar for English words.
Okay.
So a lot of words are very flip-flopped, and it's kind of hard to understand the sentences sometimes.
uh-huh.
But yeah, that's pretty much why I'm here.
Do you think you can give us an example? Like, not in a bad way. I'm just
Yeah,
purely
yeah, yeah.
curious. How would you use German grammar to speak English, you know?
Um, for example, I think she would say something like, hold on, let me think for a second. Something like, I say not you can do.
I
I
say not
mean,
you can do.
yeah.
Um
So what she's trying to say is that you can't do that or something like that.
oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
so
say
it's
not
kind
you
of cute.
can't do.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
is
I
this?
say not you can do. Yeah.
What
I'm
does
saying you
saying
can't
have
do
to
that.
do? Oh, okay. Say okay.
Telling you can't do that, basically.
Interesting.
That's
I
just an example.
I honestly like when you were saying like it's hard to understand.
Mhm.
I was like, how bad it can it be? And that one was like, I don't even know.
Yeah. But I mean, luckily everything is obviously in the context of the conversation, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of
Mm,
helps. But if she were to say something out of the blue, I would have maybe no idea, I guess, depending on what the sentence is. But
hmm
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm learning Chinese in school right now. So
you.
yeah, exactly. So I have to learn different grammar rules too. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chinese is a tough language to learn.
Yeah.
God,
So.
I hate learning Chinese. It's like the thing with Chinese is that their characters are so complicated.
hmm
Hmm.
You can't really just sound it out and put
Yeah.
like sounds together to form the word,
hmm
right? You have to know the word, or you kind of don't.
Yeah. Luckily, like all my tests are like typed.
Oh,
So,
that's cheating.
well, I mean, it's
That's 100% cheating, dude.
what do you mean?
Like, what do you mean? You just sound out the words because you can speak Chinese.
Yeah, I know. But I'm like in the accelerated program. Like it's Chinese 1MA. It's like for people with a Chinese background.
Oh,
So they kind of expect you to know some things, like know how to speak or something. But yeah.
well, they know you're cheating then.
Sure, I guess. It's
Because you're not learning the character. You're just.
We are because we still have to like learn the character so that we can recognize it when we see it when we type it out.
Oh,
You know.
I see.
Yeah, but anyways, it's definitely a lot easier because like humans are better at recognition than recollection.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
Yeah, how's it like learning Germany?
German.
Oh, fuck. So, oh, so how is it like learning German?
It's kind of difficult in that words are using sounds that other languages don't use, such as sounds from the back of your throat.
Mm.
So, say for example, the word is spelled ICH instead of like itch or ick or something like that. You would have to say like ich. I don't know if you guys can hear
Oh,
that, but
Oh.
it comes from it comes from the back of your throat. So it's kind of difficult to speak a lot of words. And same as their R sound is kind of rolled, but also kind of from the back of your throat as well. And it's really difficult. But
hmm.
yeah, anyway, so it's really hard to kind of sound like a native, I guess. And it's just something that you just have to keep working on over and over again. But yeah, so it's hard in that aspect as well as the different tenses, like
Yeah.
present perfect or past or stuff like that. And then, of course, along with exceptions they have to certain rules and whatnot, it's always very difficult whenever you're learning a new language.
Definitely. Do you try to
Mhm.
speak German to your host family?
Oh, not yet. I don't feel like I have enough vocabulary to try, or I would
Uh-huh.
just be asking them to translate every single English word that I'm trying to say. Yeah, and like all the vocab that I mean, yes, they are common words such as like clothes or weight or counter, for example, stuff like that.
Hmm.
But I haven't really been able to like I haven't needed to use those words in sentences yet. So the words that I do know I haven't used and the words that I would use I haven't learned yet. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of at that stage right now. But I'm just learning slowly but surely, little
Hmm.
by little every day.
Hmm.
And you're mostly there to speak English anyways, right? So it's not like too big of a deal.
Yeah, luckily it's not specifically to the little girl,
Uh-huh.
but and I mean yes, Germans do speak English as their second language essentially, but actually there's still a decent amount of Germans who don't really speak English.
Hmm.
So I mean, I'd still have to learn to speak
Hmm.
conversational level within like a month of the time that I'm being here, basically.
Hmm.
A
Yeah,
month from
so
now.
because like Ismaning. Anyways, Ismaning is a sort of a small town, right? You guys are north of Munich.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's a smaller town, it's even less diverse. Um, I haven't seen any African Americans. I have not seen any Hispanics whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
I've seen Indian people, and everybody else is just Caucasian. Yeah,
Oh, by
the
the
very
way,
generic blonde hair, blue eyes.
yeah. Oh, sorry to cut you off, but by the way, a little background. Lydia originally comes from California. So, in
Yeah.
California, we are super diverse. I realize for a lot of the places outside of California, you guys have one dominant race, and there is very few minorities. Whereas when you're actually in California, I would say even the minorities, they take up a good percentage of the population.
Hmm.
Right.
And a little bit more about my background, where I came from. Since I was growing up from elementary school all the way even through college, really the people that surrounded me were largely minorities. So it was funny in
Oh.
that the majority was actually minorities. So
Mm-hmm.
Asians, Hispanics, Hispanics, African Americans mainly. And so I grew up with a lot of other Asian people, so I always felt very comfortable, felt well. And even through high school, it was still the same. There were most, maybe about like 40% of my high school, at least were minorities,
Mm-hmm.
probably more. But and then yeah, in college actually, went for university, it's actually dominantly minorities as well, mainly being like Hispanics and Asians. So I've always grown up with a lot of diversity around me, and it's very unusual coming to this country where Asian people are actually the majority, and I really do stick out like a sore thumb here.
Is it, have you received any like ooh like weird looks or something?
Apparently, so I did a lot of research
Uh-huh.
about Germany and how they see other like races and cultures and stuff like that, and specifically, of course, about Asians and or Asian Americans to be even more specific.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, Germans have a thing for staring. So typically, in or even Canada or something like that, when you stare at people, it's considered rude or
Yeah.
it makes people uncomfortable, right? Like people have taught you since you're young, like don't stare at other people, that's rude, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I mean that's just how I grew up, and it's just seen as a negative thing to stare at someone, right? But in Germany apparently it's not at all something rude, but it's something like really normal that they do, and they don't see it as something rude. So when they stare at you, don't be too offended, I guess. That's just what they do, and they don't really mean much out of it. They're just like, I guess, curious or interested to see
Uh-huh.
a different, I guess. Yeah. So I have gotten a good amount of stares, mainly within the first few days that I was here. I was just biking or walking around town, and I'd get a lot of stares from people passing by me. But luckily, I was mentally prepared, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think too much of it. But it was still definitely something abnormal.
See the importance of research. Going to another country, definitely learn about their culture.
Yeah. It's very, very important to understand cultural differences, especially before you plan to move there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people there really appreciate it when you do take the time or when you show them that you learn about their culture and the way that they do things. Because people from other countries, when you go to their countries, they really appreciate it when you can show them
Mm-hmm.
who took the time out of your day to learn about their culture before going there.
Right.
They really appreciate.
Yeah. Uh, that's what I was gonna say. Is like going to another country, especially for Asian tourists. I wanna say
Because we're rude.
yeah,
we
because going out to travel, right? I've been to Europe like a couple of times, and I take some time to learn the appropriate culture,
Mhm.
right? You try not to talk too loud when you
Yeah.
go out, and it's like when you go out and order food, you don't do the thing. It's like, hey waiter, right? You're supposed to call them with your eyes and stuff like that. But then when I go out, I notice these things because I study to try to avoid them. So when other people do it, I was like, oh, dang.
They didn't study.
Yeah, that's why I see a lot of too. My parents are 100% Asian tourist, and I can't get them to stop.
Yeah, and like honestly, this is like the worst combination when you're like the rudeness of being an Asian and the entitlement of being an American.
Yeah, that's so true. A lot of times I also did a lot of research about what Germans think of Americans, and
Hmm.
most of the stereotypes are negative.
Uh-huh.
Like I've seen interviews basically where people just go out on the street and interview random passerbyers, and
Hmm.
then they ask them like, "Oh, what do you think of America?" And a lot of times it's usually very negative. Like one of the first things they think of is, "Oh, wait, like they're obese or something or unhealthy," all that kind of stuff. But anyway, and the second thing, actually, another really common thing that they think of is that they're really, really loud.
Yeah,
So I
that's
mean,
what I was thinking
just
too.
like you mentioned, David, how you said that, you know, you're of being more quiet when you're out or something like that. Yeah, that's definitely something that I appreciate you doing, because if you were loud, they would be like, oh man, not another American.
Yeah. Oh, I'm also gonna hit this topic because I know this is going towards the obese stereotype. But what do you think of the food portions in Europe?
The restaurant portions are actually, honestly, just about the same size as American, actually. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
went to this chain burger place that's actually pretty good. It's called Hans im Glück, in case I don't know anybody's wondering. But anyway, I
Yeah,
mean
to
their
our
burger is
German
just like,
viewer out there.
to any German viewers out there or anybody who's visited or plans to. But
Uh-huh.
anyway, so their burger was probably the size of, I mean, it's one of those more gourmet ones, so not something like McDonald's or In-N-Out, or
Mm-hmm.
the size of a Five Guys burger, but like much more nicely presented. Like maybe something you would get at like BJ's. I don't know. I don't even know if they have burgers, but
Some
BJ's?
some,
or maybe
yeah,
like Yard House or something like that.
Dude, Yard
yeah,
House
yeah, yeah,
is
exactly. Like something
very
more expensive.
Yeah, like
yeah.
kind of like
A
a
$10 burger.
like a pub style
Yeah,
burger.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So,
Oh.
I mean, their portion sizes are just as big as America's. I went to this one like Italian place and got a pasta dish, and it was to another pasta dish that I would get in America. And then I went to this one Asian restaurant, and actually their bowl was ginormous, even
Mm-hmm.
bigger than the ones in America. So honestly, so far I haven't really noticed that much of a difference in portion size.
I asked that question because for my traveling, especially going to France and
Mhm.
England, their portion was pretty small compared to American portions. I just remember them charging us for water every single time. And
Yeah.
by the end of the day, we would have like 6 large bottles of water, and each of those water was like €2 or something. Uh,
Uh,
but the food is really good.
yeah, I've only been to one German place so far, and it wasn't even for a meal. So I can't really say much about it. I just basically went to get one of sausages specifically. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually a white sausage. And what's unique about this sausage is that instead of just eating the whole thing, including the casing, you
Mm-hmm.
actually cut it. There are apparently two ways to eat it. I was with a host mom and she was explaining to me. So
Mm-hmm.
one way is to cut it down the middle, and then you just eat the meat on the inside and you don't eat the casing at all. And then another weird way is something to do with like sucking it, like as if you, yeah, you just like puncture it and then you like suck the meat out. I don't know. But I think most people just opt for the using a knife and eating with a fork.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Thing is also the way that it's served. So I would say if you know, were to get sausages or something in America, it would just come like it came off from a pan, right? And it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
be browned on all sides, and they'd serve it to you as a side with other things. But the way that they served it here in Germany was they brought it in this giant pot type of thing, and inside the pot is hot water, and inside
Oh.
that hot water is the sausages. So it keeps it warm while you're not like while you're eating one sausage, and then if you have like two other sausages, the other sausages are still warm basically.
Okay. So they just keep it submerged in the hot water.
Exactly, which I thought was really different and unique.
What I thought was different and unique was that they would eat sauerkrauts and mustard with
That's
everything.
true.
That was like before I went to Germany, I
Mhm.
wasn't a big fan of mustard, but after Germany, man, if you have a large portion of meat, you want some mustard on there.
Yeah, the mustard that they use is really
So
different
good.
compared to American mustard. It's more of a whole grain mustard,
Yeah.
and it's also sweeter. I
Oh.
would call it like a whole grain honey mustard.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Not that bright yellow thing that you
Yeah.
see next to ketchup. It's more of a duller yellow and
Yeah, yeah.
with like brown and stuff. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So, how have you been? You only gone out a couple times in 3 weeks. How do you feed yourself?
Oh, actually, so room and board is included in this program. So I
Oh,
usually
okay.
eat at home. Yeah, we eat breakfasts and dinners together, and then for lunch, I just find whatever's in their fridge and I just cook it up. I've been doing like stir fries and stuff.
Oh.
Eat whatever they have, like bell peppers, cucumbers, egg, jasmine rice, and then I
Hmm.
just put it all together. What's really good about this family is that they actually really like cooking and baking, and so they have all of the right equipment that I need to use. And they actually have a lot of different sauces and spices and stuff. They actually have several different Asian sauces, which is surprising.
Oh.
Apparently, they like to cook Asian food as well, which is really cool. So
Hmm.
I don't feel very deprived of any Asian sauces or anything like that as of yet.
As of yet.
As of yet.
Yeah.
I mean,
You.
they have sweet chili, they have soy sauce, sesame oil.
Yeah. I say like you also save a lot of money cooking yourself and not going out as much,
Yeah,
right?
not nearly as much. Yeah. Only gone out like roughly once a week. And that's usually just because it's more of a social thing, like
Mm-hmm.
just to get to know the people here. Just go out to eat lunch with them or have dinner with them. And that's when I'm apart from the family, of course.
Mm. This program, it also gives you classes, right?
Yeah, actually, one of the requirements for the host family is to financially support your local language courses. So for Germany, actually, the in the contract, it should say that the family should give you at least per month towards any language courses. So yeah, I'm planning to do language courses very soon, and pretty good amount of the cost will be paid for essentially by the family, which is really, really nice.
So, we kind of brought you on knowing that you were really into travel and culture. So we have a couple of questions for you regarding travel and culture.
Yeah. So, like, what do you look for when you go out, or when you just like this time you decided that you're going to go visit Germany and eventually try to stay there? What brought on this idea? Um, what about Germany or that
Wherever you go.
or wherever you go that really said, "Oh, I want to go and stay there."
Okay. So 2 years ago, I was just browsing around on YouTube like usual, and I came across a series by the channel called Sam Walton Man.
Hmm.
Anyway, so he's this kid who's an American, and then he and his family moved to Germany, and he's a filmmaker. So he was making a series called Life in Germany. And just
Hmm.
naturally, because I really, really love to learn about, as I said, like different cultures, new countries, things like that. So I just decided to watch, and he just makes videos that are really, really entertaining, but also really informative. So it was basically the best of both worlds. I'm learning while also not feeling like I'm doing work or anything like that. And it's just really enjoyable. Like I'm watching a TV show or something.
Hmm.
I kind of got hooked on his videos, and a part of me really cares about the environment. And I really admire that in Europe, they're a lot further ahead, I would say, in a lot of different areas regarding sustainability
Hmm.
and, just like saving energy and all this kinds of stuff and recycling, especially. They're a lot further than America. So I really admired that. And I thought that, it'd be a good place to learn how to decrease your footprint on this earth by even just moving here and just living here just like a local. So that was part of the reason. I mean, there are a lot of different reasons, but that
Yeah.
was part of it.
Hmm.
And then as well as just quickly getting out of my comfort zone was another thing. as I said, I've never been to Europe before, like before I came here. And actually going to Europe was something that I've wanted to do since I was in elementary school. I mean, just the typical places that
Yeah.
everyone wants to go to, like
Uh-huh.
Paris or London, stuff like that. But it didn't really extend much further than just wanting to go see all these famous places, right?
Yeah.
Um, and when I was in college, I realized or heard something that really, really changed my life because it changed my perspective on how I should use my time, especially when I'm young.
Mhm.
And there's this quote that I heard that's stuck with me since then. And the quote is, if not now, then when?
Mhm.
Story behind this
Yeah.
quote is actually a lot of times that's mostly about things that they did not do compared to the things that they actually did. And
Right.
one of the most common regrets that people, like older people, have said was that they wish they had traveled more when they were younger.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that was something that really stuck to me because they said, oh, yeah, after I graduate, I'll travel after I get a job, I'll travel after such and such reason, right? And no matter what, they just keep delaying it, delaying it, delaying it. And
Mhm.
really, the older you get, the more responsibilities you have, the less free time you actually have. And so I was really thinking to myself, college is one of the best times in your life to travel.
Right.
And a
Yeah.
lot of people as well, even since I was a senior in high school, they're saying, oh, you should really, really treasure your college years because you're never going to have anything like it. And I was like, you know what? They're actually right. I'm actually going to listen to all these people who are older than me who are telling me that I should not take it for granted and,
Uh-huh.
that I should really, really make full use of the time that I have, right?
Yeah.
And so listen, and I'm very grateful that they all told me that. And so, yeah, because of that, I just realized that I really need to make use of this time. I mean, when in the future are you going to get like 3 months of vacation, right? I'm talking about
Mhm.
summer vacation or like 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off for winter vacation, stuff like that. I mean, that stuff is just really, really difficult to get when you have a job, a full time job. I mean, most places don't give you more than like a week of paid vacation time
Right.
within your first year. I mean, I know that vacation times increase over the years, but it takes a while to build up, right? And it's
Mhm.
just very, very sparse and far between when people can travel. And usually when adults travel, it's like a 2 week luxury vacation where they just splurge on everything because they've been saving up all year because they couldn't travel any of the other times.
Mhm.
And so as a student, I have so much time. But of course, another aspect is money, obviously.
Right.
So how do I afford to travel? Actually, last year I worked 3 different jobs, part-time jobs. And ever since my first year, actually right even beginning the summer, right before my first year of college, I started a part-time job.
Mhm.
And so that if I wanted to do what I wanted to do, I needed to make money, and I didn't really want to fully rely on my parents or anything to ask them for money. And also, luckily, because I was able to save up a lot of money essentially to travel and to buy the things that I wanted to buy. And I've always been someone who's really, really into research. Like even ever since I was, I don't know, like elementary school, junior high, I would literally do hours of research just to buy like one thing or something.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway, and so yeah, so when I was even beginning freshman year, I realized that to spend money on things that are cheap and buy a lot of it,
Mhm.
or I can spend money on things that are of good quality that can last me a really long time and that I don't have to buy a lot of. So essentially, I'm talking about investments. And
Right.
so in my freshman year, I started beginning to invest in myself and kind of in my future, form of both material things and also experiences. One thing, for example, that I decided to invest in as like a lifelong experience was um, skydiving. So
Whoa.
skydiving was
Yeah.
something I think that's on a lot of people's bucket list, but usually they're too scared to do it, or even if they're not too scared to do it, they might be like, "Oh, it's really expensive." I mean, it is a few $100s,
Yeah.
which is expensive, yeah. But for me, it's worth it because there's no other thing that could hate actual skydiving. I mean, I know they have those indoor skydiving simulation type of stuff, but I really don't
like those
think
wind tunnels.
those, yeah, think those could compare at all. So I mean, yeah, that was, for example, something that I decided to invest in because I thought, this is a really, really cool and unique experience that I can't get in any other way. So why not do it? If I
Hmm.
have the money to do it, then why not? I mean, this is something that I'm gonna be able to look back on, just like kind of relive a very, very happy memory.
I think the point about investing in yourself is a really powerful one because when people think of investments, they think of, yeah, like I need to buy something that I'm gonna use for a long period or something of high quality. It's
Hmm.
always like material things, but really a lot of the most important things in your life aren't material, but they're the experiences you get. So I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, that it's a very powerful message for people to kind of understand is that investing in yourself is is a quality investment. So spending that extra money to gain those extra experiences is absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes a great
Um,
story.
Yeah, especially for like, I don't know, a podcast.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. On that plane that I was in to jump out of, I
Uh,
was literally the only female on that plane. I mean, it was a tiny plane. Yeah, it had like, I don't know, maybe like 8 or 10 people,
Uh-huh.
but all of them were males and I was the only female. And I was also definitely clearly the youngest person there. I
mhm.
think yeah, I had just turned 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a birthday present for myself type of
Oh,
thing.
okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, um, left off. Oh, enabling myself to travel. Okay. Going back to the saving money thing. So, I mean, honestly, college is one of those times where you just get caught up with what everybody else is doing,
Right.
especially in this age of social media where everybody is sharing who they're with, what they're eating, what they're doing, all this
Yeah.
kinds of stuff, right? And I would say that one of the biggest college students spend money on is eating out. So food, right? Yeah, that is such a big money sucker, I would say. Because I
Mhm.
mean, one meal could easily cost on average, let's just say like $8 to $12 or something like that.
Yep.
Add that
Hmm.
up, it amounts to a lot. And also partially because I do try to live a style, I knew that, cooking for myself was definitely the way to go. And
Hmm.
so that saved me so much money. I created, before I even started school and stuff, I created a budget of how much I should be spending on, and I would not let myself go outside of that budget. And that included both grocery shopping and also eating out.
Hmm.
It was not something extremely low, but obviously I didn't allow myself to like splurge or something. I remember it was like $200 a month.
Uh-huh.
And when,
Oh, $200
another
a
thing that,
month.
That's not that much.
That's
yeah.
very little.
Or yeah, that's very little.
Yeah,
$500 a month.
I spend like
Wow.
1,000 because I honestly eat out all the time
Wow. Yeah.
because
But
I
anyway,
work.
I mean, it's really just like grocery shopping and finding the deals and buying things in bulk. Luckily, my mom got me a Costco card,
Hmm.
so that helps a lot too.
Hmm.
So yeah. And I mean, luckily also I'm someone who doesn't have appetite, so I don't eat a ton of food.
Yeah.
So it also works out in that way as well.
Hmm.
Taking the time to learn how to cook for yourself, to take care of yourself, to save money for the things that you really, really want to do. I mean, it all comes down to looking at what you're spending your money on and really
Hmm.
logging that into like an Excel sheet, for example, because hard to accurately figure out how much you're spending on certain things when you're just guesstimating all the time, like, I didn't spend that, or I didn't go out that much this month, but in
Yeah.
reality, somebody spent like $300 or something, for
Mhm.
example. So yeah, really keeping track of your finances is one of the biggest things when you want to be able to afford the things that you want to do, what things that you want to experience. And a lot of people I see online are constantly like, oh, I wish I could travel, I wish I had this, I wish I had the money to do that. But I mean, they just, and I know them personally, so I know kind of how they live their lifestyle, and they're constantly going out to spend money on different things. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you really look, then you know why you don't have that money is because you're spending it. You're spending your paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just just learn how to set aside a certain amount of your paycheck every month, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to save enough money to go to another country for a week or something like that. So it really honestly comes down to priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the biggest things. People don't realize push aside things that they say or feel that they want to do, and they just do something else just because it's in the moment and it makes them happy right now, right? Like then and there, essentially.
Mhm.
Like it's called
Mm-hmm.
instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
We always want to be happy right now, not later. And so I think when you realize that that's the kind of mentality or mindset you have, and you actively try to work against it, that's when you'll really make a big change in your life. Essentially, working different jobs and just keeping track of my finances is how I enabled myself to travel. And oh, another thing is, as I already mentioned previously, how I'm a big researcher. So yes, that's all on the planning aspect, but the biggest step is actually doing it, taking action.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just keep saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this," or keep thinking about it. It's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
it's not enough to just talk about it constantly. I know people who talk about wanting to do certain things for years, but they're never able to do it
Mm-hmm.
because they only talk about it. They never actually do it. So really plan it and commit to it. That's one of the biggest things. Just actually committing to it, then you'll be pleasantly surprised at the positive results.
Right. Right.
This is starting to sound eerily similar to an earlier podcast we had. You hear that, listeners? Learn to cook, learn to do, and not just say. Learn to invest. These
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
not just like
Have
things
the
we.
right priorities.
Yeah, these aren't just things that we say just to say them, but like it's
Yeah.
been shared experience with a lot of people that this
Hmm.
is this is really how to like, I guess, get ahead.
Mm-hmm. I want to
Yeah.
say that it's really what it takes to get things, get to where you want to be, right? It's not the what I could be, it's what I will be. In a sense, a lot of people who are satisfied with where they're at and they're not loathing, they follow these simple steps. It's like do your research, do your planning, but most importantly, like just do. And I kind of want to like link this back to our earlier podcast. Is I like I'm a firm believer of the 5 second rule. When you have an idea of something, you say like, oh, I should probably do my laundry today, or I need to get up and I need to go to the gym. You have about 5 seconds before your body instinctively goes in and and prevents you from actually doing it, because a lot of times those activities, they're hard, they're tiring, they're exhausting, or there's
They're
some way
yeah,
that,
they're not
yeah,
luxurious.
they're not luxury. They don't make you feel good at the time. And your body instinctively tries to prevent you from doing those activities. That's just your nature, right? And usually it's you have 5 seconds before your body goes in and starts making excuses, starts saying, "Oh, but I'm really tired right now." It's like, "Oh, but I need this much money," or "Oh, I can't do this because I'll be busy with that." And that's just, it's like that's, I want to say, what hinders the most progress. In a way, when you have an idea, when you have it all planned out and researched, you have very like you have a very small window of time to get up and actually start doing it. And once you start doing it, you could keep it going, right? But yeah, yeah. The 5 second rule is pretty much when you have something you know you have to do, you have 5 seconds to make it happen, or else you're just not gonna do it that day. Like getting up early or going to the gym. And this also brought up a good point that I want to touch up on is, you know, the importance of travel as well. Whereas
Mhm.
when you go out and you travel, it really broadens your view of
Hmm.
the world. A lot of times I see people, they stay at home, either, especially for college, where you could just like, when you stay at home, you're playing games or something, or you're watching YouTube, you don't want to get out. You don't want to go and sometimes even go to class, right? You're paying
Mhm.
for those classes, but you're not going to it, and that's purely because you're just staying there. And I wanted to say the importance of going out to travel to see what's really important. It's like, why are you getting an education? Why are you working? What are you working towards? Once you travel, you see the big picture. It's like sometimes you start appreciating the things you have. Sometimes you have a lot more sympathy. You have a broader
Mhm.
view. You're able to make smarter decisions, right? And I just want to touch upon that point today.
Yeah, so like, what do you think is the most worthwhile thing you gain from traveling, and also kind of explain what your thoughts on what your thoughts are on like experiencing multiple cultures.
Just to give a little background of a few places that I've been to, I have been to Korea, Japan, Taiwan, China, Peru, Mexico, Canada, and yeah, now Germany. These, as you can tell, are ranging all different places, Asia, of course, Americas, and South America and Europe.
Mm-hmm.
um, Based off of what I have seen by experiencing these cultures, the biggest takeaway, honestly, is gaining more empathy.
Hmm.
Something that's extremely, extremely important in anybody's life.
Mm-hmm.
Making connections with other people, strengthening relationships. If it may not necessarily strengthen a relationship with something, maybe it's just a stranger that you even begin to learn to feel empathy for.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I have gone out, really get to know like the local people, that I really gain a deeper understanding of why they do the things they do, why they think the way they do, why they would do something that I would, for example. And it's just really broadened my viewpoint, as you mentioned, about the world in general. And because of this, I would say I have a lot more love in my heart for people and like humanity overall, when I really understand why. Say for example, I mean, he is being extremely rude to another person, and you
Mm-hmm.
might be thinking, oh my gosh, how could they say such a thing? Like, I would never say such a thing. How could they be so insensitive or something like that? And it may be because of something in their past experience where someone has done the same to them, and maybe nobody else stuck up for them, and so they thought, oh, to me, and it was kind of like a normal situation, then maybe I could do it to somebody else, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends that you were raised, the environment, of course, as well as cultural background, in the way that you think of things, which is why a lot of times we don't understand people. And I think is one of the number one ways that you can connect with them,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really, really hard to see eye to eye when you don't understand where they're coming from, as I said.
Hmm.
So it just really helps me connect with other people. And I think that's really, really important, especially in today's society,
Right.
Like we have so many different ways to connect with people, but in another sense, it kind of feels like we've lost connection because
Hmm.
we just want to stay within our comfort zones. That's one of the biggest obstacles everyone goes through. And really actively, deliberately seeking discomfort is one of the best ways that you will grow and one of the best ways that you will be able to learn about other people, other things, another way to build bridges with people.
Wow.
So yeah, I would say that's the biggest takeaway that I have regarding my travels and how it has broadened my vision, I guess.
Yeah. I always make this joke. I say constantly to people, it's 2017, we can't do this, or it's 2017, we have to love everyone, or it's 2017, da 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 da. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
um, like nowadays in society, there's like this heavy emphasis on like peace and love and anti like bigotry and stuff like that. But like you said, like it all stems kind of from empathy. If you don't understand like the other side, the other person, how can you really care about them or anything, right? You just
Exactly.
you just see like like a stranger who's not you. How are you supposed to like care about them at all? And yeah, so traveling. I never really thought of it that way, which is it's very good that you do. It kind of puts like my motivations to travel into a new perspective because like traveling to a lot of people it's still all about me. I'm going because I want to have fun, but when you spend longer periods of time in more foreign areas you start seeing like the world in different perspectives.
Yeah. I think the word for that is humanizing them. Because a lot of
Mhm.
times we
Mm,
would hear about a country and things they do, and as an idea, it sounds ridiculous,
Yeah, it's like
right?
people's culture, it becomes a novelty rather
Right.
than
mhm.
people.
I love going around and just telling the odd culture of China because I feel a lot of the things they do, it sounds ridiculous. But
Yeah,
until you actually go to um, China, you can't tell. It's like, why are people crosswalking everywhere they go? Or
yeah,
why are people, um, why is the water not that clean? Or it's like, how come the rural areas is not well upkept? Right? Stuff like that. But until you actually go and visit, you, you can't tell the situations that they were in and the action and the reasoning behind their actions. And
yeah,
that once you visit another country, it really puts things into perspective, like you said,
yeah,
where it puts a face to the people. It puts a reason behind their culture,
Hmm.
right? And
yeah.
sometimes before I hated history, right? I was like, why do I care what happened in the past? I just care about the future,
Mhm.
right? I'm a big math and science guy, so why are you telling me about who did what back in the past? But it really comes to explain why some people act the way they do in the current age. It's because back
Mhm.
then they did have a harsh period of time where they were forced to do things uh, that is very questionable. It's like, why do Chinese people eat everything? Well, because back then there was a period of time where you literally had nothing to eat, and
Yeah,
in order to survive, you had to eat everything, right? Another culture thing is like, why does Russia love milk products so much? Why do they love potatoes so much? It's because they're constantly in winter, and, and the only thing that kept them alive was having a cow during the winter or having potatoes in their cellars that is able to survive the harsh and bracing cold.
Hmm.
And stuff like that, it just puts things into perspective. It's so interesting.
yeah.
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 So I
And
have this question about kind of like cultural identity. Um,
Mhm.
Whenever anyone asks me, "Oh, what race are you?" I always answer American, and they're never satisfied with that answer.
Oh yeah, it's like, where are you really from?
I was born here,
Yeah.
raised here, my whole life I only knew here. So what makes me not American? But anyways, you, I presumably Asian, born in America, living in
Yeah.
Germany, right? Did I get everything correct?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you identify yourself as?
I would just call myself an Asian American,
Hmm.
really.
Hmm.
Pretty simple. Yeah, when people ask me like, oh, like where are your parents from, then I just say I'm Taiwanese.
Hmm.
Usually like, oh, okay, yeah, basically Chinese. I'm like, not exactly, but sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but with all your like experience traveling and meeting all these other people, what do you think like defines these words, these like I guess like race words? You know, what makes you Taiwanese? What makes you American? When you see other people, like can you clearly tell what they are and like how do you start defining those words?
Oh man, that's pretty complex.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries at all. For me, I just prefer to be quite simple and straightforward
Hmm.
instead of making it as complex. I mean, I've definitely watched a lot of debates about, what it means to be like Asian American, or why is America the only place where other like they're ethnic people of ethnic backgrounds always tack on like African American, Asian American, all this kind of stuff. But no other countries like do that. So if you're from Canada, no, and you're Asian, they don't say, "Oh, I'm Asian Canadian." They just say, "Yeah, I'm Asian," or "I'm just Canadian," or something like that.
Hmm.
So it's actually really, really interesting that to see that, or to realize that America is like the main. Sure if they do it in other countries. I haven't really heard, but I've just heard that yeah, in America, it's really weird actually that we're we always American at the end of whatever ethnic background we have. And
Hmm.
I've, I guess, gathered from listening to different responses to this question,
Hmm.
it's our feeling of needing to fit into American culture, I would
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
Like on one hand, we want to hang on to our roots, Asian
Hmm.
side, right?
Right.
Because that's where our parents are from. But on another side, as you said, I was born in America. I was born in California, raised in California. So why am I anything outside of an American? Like I don't have a Taiwanese citizenship. I have an American citizenship. And so essentially it's kind of complex, I guess, for us, just because, as I said, we want to hold on to our roots, but at the same time, I mean, we're just plain and simple Americans. Like you can't take that away from us,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so we just kind of, I guess, combine it so that we don't lose part of our identity.
Hmm.
Because when we say that we're just American, in other people's eyes at least, it's like, oh, what about your Asian background? Like, oh, aren't you like aren't you still practicing some of the things from your own culture from back home?
Hmm.
Like even just that we eat is obviously different from like a typical Caucasian family, for example,
Hmm.
right? And so I mean, our food is obviously a large part of our culture. So
Yeah.
I would say that, because I don't know, for example, most of us eat rice quite often, right? So
Yeah.
that's a big thing. I mean, that's something that sets us apart from, I guess, a typical Caucasian American.
Hmm.
So I guess I would just consider myself Asian American, and yeah, I am proud of being Asian. I've never wanted to not be Asian. I know that a lot of growing up here, if they were in dominantly like white areas, for example, they would feel the need to kind of drop their ethnic background because they wanted to fit in more.
Yeah.
Um, if, it's pretty sad to hear that, and they just try to make themselves seem more quote unquote white
Hmm.
so that they won't get made fun of, for example. I mean, I've even heard of multiple examples of kids of for the food that they brought to school, like what their parents packed for them, and they would throw it away, or they would be so ashamed that they wouldn't even take it out, things like that. So the original question, I think I kind of got sidetracked.
No, I think I honestly don't even remember the original question, but what you're saying is really good. It's very insightful.
I remember I had my lunch and sometimes I would throw it away, but not because of Asian, but just because I didn't want to eat it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The thing about being Asian
Yeah.
is like we don't have that bad of a stereotype. It's like, what's our stereotype? We love math and we eat everything and we have bad
Yeah.
driving, which honestly are all true. Like where I live, it's like 90% Asian, and God, I hate other Asian drivers. I don't know. I was never ashamed of being Asian. It was just
Yeah.
I got to a point where it's like, I don't care what I am.
Mhm.
I did at one point want to be white though. Because you guys want to guess the reason?
I don't even have a guess, to be honest.
Okay. I wanted to
Oh.
grow a beard.
Oh.
And Asians cannot grow a beard to save their life. Right? I get these like weird tiny stubbles. There are some Asians that can grow a nice beard, right? But like
Not all of them.
not the majority, definitely.
For me, why I kind of brought this up was because my philosophy is that I have this thought where I really hate all these like labels, these ethnic labels. I think they're the most arbitrary, pointless things ever. But at the same time, I don't. I really appreciate culture. You know, where people come from and what they do. It fascinates me, and I feel like having empathy toward all these different cultures is important. But like tying like one of those cultures to a label and like generalizing it is very, I don't know, pointless to me. I think we're all human and we all do things differently, and that's kind of how I always saw the world. Or not always. Actually, this is more of a recent thing, coming to college and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good way to see things. I think it's a good perspective because just I think the biggest reason why we even have all these labels is because it makes it easier for us in our minds, like literally, like mentally, our brains. It's a lot harder to take in information if we cannot categorize it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, because I mean, I wanted to be a psychology major, so that's partially the reason why I specifically brought that up. But I mean, it's literally like
It's
not
out of
even
kind of out of necessity.
Yeah.
exactly. But I mean, of course, is also social construct.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So-
thank you, Lydia, for stopping by to our podcast. It was really nice talking to you and hearing your your kind of outside perspective from all around the world. It was like almost talking to like a bunch of different people at once.
Mm-hmm.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different sides to me, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for having me on this podcast.
Thank you
It
for
was a
being
really,
on.
really cool experience. I mean, I've literally never even thought of being on a podcast before or anything, but I don't know. It's a really cool opportunity, so thanks.
Okay. Yeah, well, maybe we could do this again in the future.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we have things more set out.
And we have a bigger audience.
I honestly, I don't care about the audience. Like,
Here's hoping.
this is what I wanted to do. I just want to get people together and talk about ideas, right?
Love it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming again.
Yeah, this has been the Inpending podcast. Thanks for listening. See you next time.